thoughts on, is it time for Phil Spencer to go? Xbox fans are not happy. It's not been a good week for Xbox in many people's minds with studio closures and comments from Sarah Bond that don't seem to be helping, and very, very contentious times. So we'll be weighing in on that. If you're watching this later, be sure to hit subscribe and the bell button. I will be gone for 1 week. This is like one of the last things we're going to do on the channel before I take a week break, but streams will resume on the 20th. So I'll see you then. 30, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, as always.
I'm going to end the previous stream where I talked about Xbox has been killed by Microsoft. Check out that upload. It's absolutely screaming on the channel right now. It'll probably end up being one of my most watched videos where I break down why I think Microsoft killed Xbox, which I'm sure will be kind of part of this discussion and where we want to lay blame here, Mike. Because, I mean, just in general, with what you've seen this week with the closing of Tango Gameworks and Arcane Austin, and, you know, we're hearing they're thinking about, you know, they're reevaluating Game Pass and they want to launch a mobile store, and everything seems to be changing at a breakneck speed. What is your general opinion of Xbox right now from the, just as a consumer, you're just sort of watching all this transpire? Before we even get to Phil, like, where are you on Xbox?
I had talks a couple months ago about like Call of Duty losing their identity and like Battlefield losing their identity. And I read an article yesterday about Nintendo, how they said that there was going to be longer processes of making games and more complex and more sophisticated. And they said that they're going to look hard, deep and hard about who will they partner with, because they really want to know that they know what Nintendo's identity is, right? Like, they know what Nintendo believes in and what they want to make and what type of games they want to make. And the reason I bring this up is because it answers your question. Xbox doesn't have that, right? They don't know who they are. They've lost their identity. They've been chasing different things the entire time. Even when they launched, they just got into the gaming business, right? They made this big giant Xbox. They had Halo as a big success for them. Then they made the Xbox 360, and then they wanted to make the 360 sort of like a media player, but then they really pushed it with the Xbox One. The Kinect, right? They try to get the set-top box. They've always been like chasing this thing, and this business time is Game Pass. Game Pass is what they're doing, and Game Pass seems like it didn't work out because before it all started, they had to sell a crap ton of consoles. If they can sell a crap ton of consoles, then Game Pass would have worked. But it didn't sell a crap ton of consoles, so Game Pass is struggling. So then they changed it again. They said, well, let's put everything on everywhere. And now that's where they're going. They're putting it on everywhere. They're putting it on the cloud. They're putting it on television sets and headsets. They're chasing this thing of they don't know who they are, and they're trying to find out who they are. That's what I believe that Xbox is doing. They're struggling because they don't know what their identity is. Okay, and that's just, I think, a wonderful summary of similar things I said in my video about Microsoft killed Xbox. And I touched on they've always been more prone to just sort of buying something, and that seems to have led to, between them just sort of buying studios and then bringing them under Microsoft's corporate policies, you just see talent exodus. You see people kind of running away from Microsoft and Xbox, and most of their well-known stuff, they just kind of bought it. And that's sort of in overdrive now. And I think when you do that, when you just buy, like what you just said, it's like, well, what's the identity then? You're just sort of gobbling things up and trying to squeeze profit out of them. At what point do you think things really change? Because I do feel like during the 360 era, there was this idea that like Xbox was a household name. That's what I argued in my videos. Like, it was a household name. It's where I gamed primarily. It's where I played Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. And many people do. They point to the 360 era as like, well, that was the era. That was when things were really good. And then after that, it kind of fell apart. Do you feel like there ever was a time where they were carving out? Or you think it's always been this way? They just never really had an identity? No, I think 360 was the closest they've ever thought about what they wanted. And then they kind of changed up because once Phil came in, they started making money, first of all, when Phil came in. They were losing money before, even though 360 was popular and whatnot. Just the gaming industry wasn't very in their favor. Now they're making more money, but they're less successful because of the console sales and whatnot. But because of the different deals and the different IPs they've picked up, they're more profitable, and the revenue's up with games and microtransactions and stuff, but it's down in hardware sales and whatnot. So you can see that that's actually good for them, because Microsoft sees that and says, well, that's what we've always been about Microsoft, right? We don't make devices. All the devices they've ever made have pretty much failed, right? The Zune, the Windows Phone, they're still out there, but they failed, right? So they just make the software, Microsoft, right? That's what they're making. They're just making the software of the stuff. That's how they make their billions and trillions of dollars. And now I think they've probably implemented that for this, because of cloud gaming, because the internet is where it is today. We had this conversation last year. I said, I think within 6 or 7 years, the cloud gaming will be like the majority of the market, which will be like 34% of the market, because that's where everyone's going, right? You can see the shift in that type of industry now. Everything's going, not live service, but streaming service, PlayStation Plus, Ubisoft Plus, EA Plus. They're all trying to get these streaming services, and they're also digital downloads, and they're all streaming from clouds, and they're all trying to do all this stuff. So I think that's where they're pushing towards. Now, in the streaming service market for television, the only profitable company is Netflix, right? Netflix is the only profitable streaming service that's out there. Everybody else is struggling, losing millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And Netflix is the king because they're there first. They were there first while everyone else was trying to chase what they did, right? And that's what Microsoft is trying to do right now. They're trying to be the Netflix of the gaming industry, and they're trying to get there first. And then if they can get there first, hopefully they can, hold out and keep that spot.
Well, people in chat are pointing out that, the revenue that went up was only because of ABK. Like, if you a lot of the analysts said if you subtract ABK, they would have been down again.
Sure.
And that, I think, is why we're seeing the cuts, because they're basically like, yeah, that looks great that we're finally seeing up, but it's only because of ABK. And if we want that to net more return, we're going to have to trim and get rid of these studios.
Yep.
And when you see studios like this close down, like we've been covering, the industry now for at least as long as I've known you. It's been about 10 years. And so in that 10 years time, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, where just a quick sweep and studios get closed, and then we're hearing there's more cuts coming. When you look at Microsoft and you look at the path forward with hardware, where it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing a console. It seems like it could be something more like a PC. What are your thoughts on the studio closures? Like, what was your reaction to that? I'm sure you covered that this week. Where did you land on the studio closures?
I'm more very cynical when it comes to this, because I worked in the corporate world. I've been in the film industry for 20 years. I've seen stuff like this, massive studios close down, production companies that I've worked for. So to me, I look at this as business as usual. I know a lot of people look at this and go, this is devastating. I think you're one of them that says this is devastating, but I look at it and go, nothing's changed. You can go back as far as 2006, and I think it was 2006 or 2011. LucasArts just destroyed all their entire studio. They just closed everyone down. Gone. 600, 700 people lost their jobs back then. EA Games picks up companies all the time. They've closed down, 11, 12, 14 studios over the years. And I think in 2013, they closed 4 studios, right? So, this is not abnormal for the industry. Now, what it is, though, because we cover it and because we like the games that we are, there's more companies making video games now than ever before. There's more studios now than have been making games than ever before. So there's a lot of people that small studios close all the time. Did you guys know that a first-party studio that wasn't Nintendo, but they made games for Nintendo, closed on Friday? Closed down. One article reported it. One article. No one talked about Nintendo closing down, not Nintendo closing a studio, but a studio that's been around for 19 years closed down because they just can't make it, right? And this is the reality of the stuff. It's harder for people to have a successful game. They can be artsy and make the games that they want, but if they don't get that bottom line where that money needs to go, then they close down. And this, like I said, this happens all the time. So yeah, I'm a little bit more cynical, and people might look at it and go, this guy he's a corporate guy. I'm not a corporate guy. It's just, that's the reality of that's the reality of it.
Well, I also think this is different because it's seemingly the ramifications of an unprecedented acquisition. And also, when you see a game do so well and get so many awards, and that wasn't enough to keep the studio open, I think my frustration with it was there was no value analysis of what Tango brought to the table. It was, they would literally like, oh, you're not working on anything, so you're gone. Like, I don't feel like we're losing studios that like sort of had it coming or weren't producing, or in the case of this studio's been around for 19 years, maybe they're just sort of aging out of the industry. They're like, we just can't kind of do it anymore, can't keep up or whatever. I do think this is different. And the thing that I think frustrates me is what you're saying isn't wrong, which is exactly why so many of us were against this. We're like, this is quite literally what businesses like this will do. They will just gut studios. Studios will be gone. And we were told we were fear-mongering and hating. And it's like, like you're saying, like, this is what corporations this size do. They cannot operate and just let small, non-high revenue generating, entities survive. They just get rid of them.
Yeah, we talked last year. I didn't want the consolidation. I didn't want Microsoft to buy it, but me and you can't stop it. None of us can stop it, right? I call any corporation, if it's Apple, if it's EA, if it's Microsoft, they're Unicron. If you're a Transformers fan, you'll know it's the big planet that eats other planets. Okay, he just moves across the solar system and just keeps eating planets and doesn't care about the trillions of people on those planets and the businesses on those planets. He's just caring about himself. He's a big corporation going, well, I got to survive, and I'm just going to eat the planet and move on to the next planet. And that's what happens with a lot of these things, right? Because the companies have to keep growing, so they have to buy the companies that make the corporation more successful because of the IPs. It's all about IPs. Why do you think Disney picked up Marvel and Star Wars, and at one point they had Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and they picked up Teenage Mutant. Like they just keep selling these IPs off to other different companies because that's what sells. That's what gets them. Why do you think we're getting another Lord of the Rings movie? Why do you think we're getting a reboot of RoboCop or The Crow? It's the IPs that bring in people, not the original stories, right? So now if we bring it back to gaming, these independent developers, they don't want to invest and take time with these guys because they want them to kind of suffer themselves. So when they make the game, if it takes off, they go, oh, I had my eye on you. We really like what you've done with this game. And they're like, we'll give you money and we'll develop your next game. Like, oh, this is awesome. Because as an independent developer, you're like, this is fantastic. We get all the money that we can get now. We can make a bigger game. We can put more money in. We don't have to worry about it. And then they go, oh yeah, we're closing you down after we bought you out because your last game didn't make enough money. So we'll see you guys later.
Do you think that we are on the precipice of essentially what the birth of gaming was, is they kind of won you over with the idea and the IP, and kind of what you've seen in the film industry, we're now seeing in the gaming industry, where they're just going to pull the Disney. They're going to buy the really popular IP and squeeze a snot out of it. And, like what they've done with Star Wars and Marvel. But even they're learning that there's a limit on how much you can do there. Like they're having to reassess how often they're coming out with like Marvel content. So do you see a future where like does Microsoft basically function in that way? Like they only care about like Call of Duty and the bigger titles?
I think they have to get to a point where they take the Call of Duty, they take the Elder Scrolls, they take the Starfield if it's that one of those things, it takes the Halo, takes the Gears of War, they push the big titles out there to kind of set the ground floor, to set the pace they want to go. And then because a couple months ago they talked about how they were putting more money into the independent developers inside of Xbox ecosystem and also Game Pass, right? And so sure, they're going to take the big IPs and try to push them, but at the same time they still need the little guys. You still need the minor leagues, otherwise the major leagues don't make it. You know what I mean? Like you still need to have the minor league baseball players and football players down below and get better before you bring them up to the majors. And that's what it is. And sometimes when your number's called, you can either capitalize on the opportunity or you sink and swim, right? And that's just it. So a lot of these studios come out. Remember, Activision and EA were small independent studios way back when in the 80s, and now they're these big, huge conglomerate companies because they made a game, they sold a game, and those games that they created just kept accruing this money. And then they got bought out. Biggest companies get bought out. I mean, Activision got picked up by Blizzard or vice versa, whatever you want to call it. And they just keep adding and using the key IPs, which is the Call of Duty, which is the World of Warcraft, which is the Overwatch at the time, not anymore, right?
Do you in this certain trajectory of change, there's been some people that have speculated they're going to drop the name Xbox. I'm going to kind of use this to get to Phil Spencer. Like, does he need to go? That's been the big, people are very unhappy. But then there's also this idea that, and at the front end of this podcast, I said that, Microsoft killed Xbox. And it's like, what I mean is they've killed the idea. They've killed the identity. That Xbox isn't going anywhere, but they may change names. Like, do you think there's a possibility they go with this Microsoft Gaming rebrand? I mean, apparently Matt Booty has indicated that the name is stressed. Like, it's not a beloved name now.
Well, come on. Well, what do you call Twitter right now?
I call it Twitter.
You call it Twitter. Do you call it X? No. Do you call Facebook Meta? Do you call Facebook Meta?
Well, Facebook didn't rebrand. Their parent company just changed.
Whatever, but
that's different.
Well, it's still a company changed its name to Meta, right?
Yeah, but I still open up Facebook. I don't open up Twitter.
Sure.
They change the app and everything.
Well, my point is they could change the name, but it's never going to lose its identity, right? They could change it to whatever they want. It's still Xbox. It's always going to be Xbox, even if they do change the name. I don't think they'll change the name. I think that's kind of a stupid thing. I think it's always stupid. Your brand identity has been around for 20 years for Xbox. So if you change it now, that just goes to my point in the beginning. They don't know their identity, right? If they're changing their name of the actual company now, they don't know their identity of what they are.
Right. Well, so on that token, that's just sort of a good preamble to get to the real topic. What's on the thumbnail? What's on the title of this? And I didn't really let chat talk about this in the previous in the previous stream. People are arguing rather strongly and rather angrily that Phil Spencer needs to go. Now, I tweeted and just asked the question. I was like, do people really think that's going to change anything? Because
I agree.
I don't even think Phil's in charge anymore. Like, I don't think he's really been in charge since about the middle of last year. I think they gave him his last hurrah. 2021, he's like, ZeniMax, we're going to get these exclusives. Everything's ours. Everything's exclusive. And that doesn't pan out for him. Mm-hmm. So what's your opinion on this movement? Like, we deserve better. Phil has failed us. Get rid of Phil Spencer.
I mean, this is not just as simple as do I think he should get fired or not, right? Like, if I'm going to think that way, then I got to put myself in his position. And I've never been in a CEO of a company, but I've been pretty high up in a company, and I'm the one that had to do the firings, and it never feels good, right? Like, but I was told by the upper people to go fire these people. You know what I mean? And that's exactly where Phil is in. He just got paid millions. I got paid tens of dollars, right? So, like, him doing what he's doing, I think Phil is a gamer. He believes in the developers, and you've even seen Mikey Barra come out and say that he's a good guy. He's just being torched right now, and I think that kind of opens up a little bit because a lot of people that are in the industry talk really good about Phil, but the people that are playing the games, crap talk Phil because they think he has to go but really who he has to answer to is the corporate guys. And Phil, I don't think has lied totally. When he says that he lets companies and devs make the games they want, he's 100% truthful about that, right? Like, he let Tango Games make Hi-Fi Rush. He says that I want these guys to make the games they want to make. Now, that's the artsy side. The business side doesn't care about your artsy side. The business side wants to know if that artsy game is going to make enough money back, and that's where Microsoft comes in. Right. And that's when Microsoft says, yeah, we're done with these little artsy games that are barely making us money. And, 1 million people played it and whatever. Mm-hmm. Now that works great. But when their business model's Game Pass and the majority of those people don't buy that artsy game and they play it on a streaming service for $10 a month or $15 a month, and then they kind of put it down and move on, that game's done. You're not making the other sales because they could just try it out. And if you don't put it on multiple platforms, Hi-Fi Rush should have been out on Switch day one. They should have launched it on all their other platforms day one, right? So specific for Hi-Fi Rush, it failed because it was a single-player game, and they put it on, and no advertisement, no marketing, and they just dropped it. And it was successful. Did you play it?
My daughter beat it. I played it a little bit, but then she actually played it and beat it. It's like one of her favorite games. I started playing it on PlayStation, and I didn't think I would like it because it's a rhythm game, and I actually liked it more than I thought I would. Anytime she let me play, she would like need help with something, and I had no idea what I was doing because like when you play through a game, you develop the muscle memory and you understand them. I didn't know what I was doing, so I was always like, I don't really like this rhythm game, but it was because I was fighting a boss and she's 3 hours in, so I was really enjoying it. I want to go back and finish it. I just haven't had time.
Did you guys buy it, or are you playing it on? Like, oh, you bought it on PlayStation. You said you got it on PlayStation.
She played it on Game Pass, but I bought it on PlayStation. Yeah.
Okay, so you bought it, right? So you can actually stay there and go, well, I bought it, right? They say 3 to 4 million people played it. Well, how many people bought it? They're upset that the game company got closed down, but did you buy the game? Did anyone buy the game? Did anyone go out and buy the game to play the game? No. But now I know people are defending and go, well, Game Pass, why would I buy the game? It's on Game Pass. You're absolutely right. Why would you buy the game if it's on Game Pass? You could just play the game and put it down. But to come out and say, well, this game shouldn't have closed down, it didn't make money. As a business standpoint, it didn't make money for them, so they have to close down. They have to trim the fat and go on to something else, which is brutal, right? It's brutal because Phil said, make the game you want, and then corporate said, your game didn't make money. See you later. Kick the cans, right? And that's the problem with the artsy with the CEO. And Phil is that hippie dude in between, trying to balance the dishes here as corporate's trying to tell him, well, this didn't make money, you got to get it go. He's like, yeah, but these guys are really good guys. They make really good games. We have this IP. They don't care. Corporate doesn't care. They just crush down on the companies and trim the fat, move on. Next game, next company. What is it? 3 to 5 years? They don't want to make a game 3 to 5 years. That's the problem. They don't want to invest 3 to 5 years of development. They want to invest 18 to 24 months, put it out there as a game as a service, charge microtransactions, and then try to make money as soon as possible.
See, I think Phil Spencer believed in the value that Hi-Fi Rush brought to the brand and Game Pass, and I don't think this was his decision. I think he was told, you got to trim, and they made a very utilitarian decision to say, we're in a bit of a dire strait here. We've got to trim, and we've got to bring production annual costs down, and they're in the middle of pitching and not building. Therefore, they're the easiest cut to make. Like that, they literally didn't get rid of Tango because that, like, oh, it didn't make enough money. Like, that wasn't the reasoning. The actual reasoning was, oh, they're not actively working on anything, so get rid of them. Anybody who's currently working on something gets to stay because it's like they're going to bring something to market.
Correct, but they also said they wanted to do Hi-Fi Rush 2. Well, how long is that going to take? 3 to 5 years. Great. The optics on this is that 3 million people played it. How many people bought it? Is it going to be worth the investment of 3 to 5 years for you to make Hi-Fi Rush 2 to put it in the exact same position it is right now?
Well, but they wouldn't, though. That's what frustrates me about it, is that Hi-Fi's been rated for Nintendo, so it's likely headed to the Nintendo Switch 2, I believe. Maybe even the original Nintendo. I think it would crush on the Nintendo.
I agree.
If it does well there and amasses an audience, then the sequel would be a multi-plat release and would then sell on Steam, PlayStation, and Nintendo. And sure, it hits Game Pass, but that's the smallest platform. Who cares if it's selling on Nintendo? Like, that's what frustrates me about it, is they didn't give it a chance as a multi-plat buy-to-play game. It came to these other platforms later, so obviously the sales are going to be diminished. So, to me, that's what frustrates me about this, is that you're seeing a game and a studio basically not get a fair shot because Microsoft spent so much money that now Tango's having to write that bill. They're having to foot the bill, essentially. Like they're not the ones that decided to buy ABK.
Right, and then you have Arcane Studios who made a crappy game and they get merged in, right? Like that's not fair. I mean, but the reason they probably got moved in is because they already know the software that they're using for other games. Hence why they just moved them over. Where Tango probably didn't know the software or whatever they were doing, and they're like, well, we don't know what to do with you. So, all right, see you guys later. We'll contact you if we ever need you again, right? I mean, that's the harsh reality of the situation.
Well, and this is where I will fault Phil, and I will be critical of him. In his email that we saw during the FTC, where he basically admits to the guy, we don't have an Excel sheet to measure the value of a game.
Of success, yeah.
Yeah, of success, like hitting Game Pass. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. If you don't have that figured out yet, Jeff Grubb said he was hearing that, Hi-Fi Rush missed sales targets. I'm like, why would you have sales targets for a shadow-dropped game that hits Game Pass? That seems completely asinine. That doesn't make any sense. Like, It's like they were figuring this out along the way, and Microsoft walked in the room and said, No,
it's over.
It's over. This is over. We're not doing this anymore. If you're a smaller studio and you're not currently working on anything, you're out of here. And that's why people are concerned that like Ninja Theory's next. Like, oh, well, they'll get Hellblade 2 to come to PlayStation and they'll be gone as well. So like getting rid of Phil Spencer wouldn't change any of this. Like, I think people are just angry and they want a scapegoat. Do you think Microsoft gives them a scapegoat? Do you think Phil's days are numbered?
I personally don't think him numbered yet. I still think that they're going to let him play out what his vision is a little bit, but they're still, it's like kids having fun in a room, and then all of a sudden an adult comes in and is like, hey, stop that, and you're like, what? I wasn't doing anything. They're like, that's right. And you're not doing anything anymore. And you're like, well, way to kill the party, right? Like Phil was trying to do something with these small studios making projects and stuff, and then Microsoft kicked in the door and was like, what are you doing? You're not doing anything? Get out of here. Go mow the lawn. Do something, right? They were like mad at the studios. They're like, well, if you're not doing anything, you're fired. And they're like, oh, okay. And Phil's like, okay, well, I'm the one that's going to have to sit on the couch and explain what's going on here. And, he'll say some BS and tell you that, well, things happen. We're still tried and true. We're still making games for the players. And he's going to say all that stuff, So I don't think he is going to get fired. And to answer your question, who do they put in? Sarah Bond? Do you think Sarah Bond's going to have a completely different change of what Phil was doing, or Matt Booty, or you bring in someone else completely different and change it? Like Microsoft wants money now. Who are they going to bring in? Bobby Kotick, right? What are they going to do? And I don't think if you bring someone in right now, it makes massive changes. I think it's the exact same thing. They stay, on course of what they're doing, which is Game Pass everywhere. That's what it is.
I don't actually think their play is to focus as hard on Game Pass anymore. I think Game Pass is going to take a back seat and even change. Like they're going to raise. I theorize they're going to raise the price of Ultimate, and that's where day and date's going to be. If you want day and date, I think you're going to need Ultimate. I think they're going to take Game Pass Core and Standard Game Pass and smash them together, and it's just going to be like a collection of games. It's not going to be like a monthly allotment of games or a day and date. I mean, you've mentioned Game Pass a couple times. Do you think Game Pass is just going to continue on day and date? I mean, Sarah Bond just did an interview and she's like, yeah, our first party games are going to continue to come to Game Pass day one. And it's like, how can you guys keep affording to do that if this is the new paradigm of, having to gut and get revenue up? They were apparently internally discussing whether or not Call of Duty would come to Game Pass. I think she was trying to quiet that rumor that there was a potential Call of Duty wouldn't be hitting Game Pass.
I think what I've said this on your show and on my videos and stuff. I think they do a tier where it's higher up and they make it like where they add World of Warcraft or they add some MMOs on that upper tier, right? And those games that come day and date would be on that top tier of Ultimate. That makes sense, right? I mean, that if they're looking to get the day and date, if everyone gets it, then no one's going to get it. But if they can charge you 15, 20, maybe 25, who knows, where you can pay that money. Well, if it's a $50 game that they're throwing on Game Pass, you've already paid half of it right there with just the $25 or the $20, a third of it or a half of it, whatever, if it's 20 or 25. I think they have to add more value. That's the problem with Game Pass, right? They've opened the door where they put 100 games or more than 100 games on this thing, and now everyone thinks that they deserve everything that comes out on the Game Pass market, and they have to kind of change that now, right? They have to kind of say, well, the value of the games that we're getting, if you get this or get, we're putting World of Warcraft, but if World of Warcraft's in your, again, this is my speculation, this is not what's happening, chat. If they put World of Warcraft on there, then they're like, well, it's $20 to get this, and you get everything else included. So they give more value to why should I, like, if they just have it exactly as is, as now, and they just raise the price $2 or $3, you're like, well, I was already paying for the same stuff I already got. They have to put more value. Now, is that taking all of Activision Blizzard's catalog, putting like Ultimate Alliance and the Transformers games and all the Call of Duties? Do they put that on there like one lump sum, or do they slowly pull them out over the next year or two? Because obviously, if you waste it all at one shot, then they can't raise it down the road again, right? So,
yeah, I'm actually really curious if their goal is to say, we're going to make it so expensive that I think they wouldn't really care if people fall off and cancel, because then they have to buy they have to buy the game. And it's like, if you buy one $70 game, that's that's 7 months of Game Pass at $10 a month. If you buy a couple of games a year, they've already made more money from you. There's better margins on that. So it's like, I also think that the situation with Phil and Sarah and like making her walk out and do this interview with Bloomberg, it really does feel like they weren't prepared for all of this. It very much feels like Microsoft stepped in and everything kind of Xbox was planning on got very much rug pulled. And did you see any of the clips of her in this interview with Bloomberg?
I haven't watched any of the interview yet.
It's rough. I mean, she gets asked directly about closing Tango with how well the game did. It's like, well, how do you even measure success if a game can get that much acclaim and praise? And especially, it's like you voluntarily put it on Game Pass. So like if it didn't generate a ton of revenue, that was a self-inflicted wound. So it's like, if you're going to close them down, and like her answer was just terrible, and she seemed flustered, and she seemed like it just seemed really strange. It's like I wonder if the hate for Phil Spencer has hit such a height that they were like, he can't go out and be front facing right now,
right?
He could want out, honestly. Like I've kind of postulated that like he really wanted to keep going with the strategy of shoring up exclusives and pushing for Game Pass, and I think that plan didn't work. I think he was part of the planning of saying let's just shift to publishing, but I also think there was a pretty big part of him that wanted this shore up exclusives in this Game Pass strategy to work, and I just think it's very clearly not worked for them.
You can tell Phil Spencer's a stress eater, right? Because when he came into the business, he didn't look like what he looks like now. Okay, so he's much heavier, much bigger, right? And if anybody that's in that position, right, it's a very high stress scenario, no matter what corporate world you're in, to do what you have to do, because again, you're answering to higher ups that want profits to keep moving. So Sarah's no different than Phil, and Matt Booty's no different than Phil. He's their higher up, but then he's got to answer to Nadella, and Nadella's got to answer to the board, and so on and so forth. So I think someone's saying she's set up. I don't know if she's set up. Maybe they're prepping her. Maybe she's the one that's in next in line to take Phil's spot, and then they're like, hey, if you want Phil's spot, you got to do these things that you have to do, right? So who knows?
Yeah, I think, obviously his change in he even looks older, right? And I don't like commentating on like what people look like all that much. I would say also just that life of traveling, like you're just eating garbage usually.
Jim Ryan said it. Ryan said it when he retired. Yeah.
Yeah, you're always eating like greasy food from some restaurant, and probably not sleeping all that well. So then your metabolism gets all jacked up, and you get a lot more gray hair, and. So I kind of look at him and think, man, the industry really, in 10 years' time, because he stepped in 2014. Funny enough, that the exact same time that Satya Nadella stepped in. Mm. And at the time, Phil was like, he's unfamiliar with the gaming industry. Like, basically, Satya wasn't really up on like what was going on. And I think they've been almost philosophically slightly opposed to each other this entire time. Like, I think Phil has really stressed the word creative. We need to foster an environment where creatives can flourish and do what they need to do. And I argued that he has felt somewhat handcuffed, like the developers have felt somewhat handcuffed by Microsoft's policies and how they handle it with everybody leaving. With the word now that like Perfect Dark is in rough state, a lot of these devs, a lot of these teams and projects have been rebooted and people have left. Is there a version of this where you see where they just can't even retain enough talent to bring good games to market? Like, will they end up... They've failed to be a competitive console. Is there a future where you see like they don't even do a good job at publishing? Because it feels to me like Microsoft absolutely chokes out their acidic to creative process. They're treating this the way they treat utilitarian software like Microsoft Office and Windows operating system. And I don't think you can create good games in that structure. I don't think it's possible.
I don't even think you can create good games, but in any studio where they want you to pump them out in 3 to 5 years, and it takes longer than that. Not just Microsoft or not just Xbox. I mean, where do these devs go? Right? These people that leave, where do they go? If they don't want to work for Microsoft, Are they going to work for Sony? Are they going to work for Nintendo? It's a little saturated, right? There's a lot of studios trying to put a game out there. A lot of independent studios trying to work the game. I mean, there's been articles written that said that the AAA gaming industry is heading for a wall because there's just, one, not enough talent. Two, not enough people buying. And three, the overprice of how these prices are going up with the industry. So, like, okay, so everyone hates Microsoft and they want to leave Microsoft. What's the alternative?
Right.
Going to another platform to get lost into the sea of other studios that are all trying to. I mean, look at YouTube. There's millions of people on YouTube, and we're all fighting for a small chunk of your space on the YouTube space, right? No difference than making a video game and trying to fight for your viewership, for C's, for people to buy or to keep playing. This is why this goes into microtransactions. This goes into season passes and battle passes because they want you to be like this, right? They want you to be a horse on the track, not looking left or right. They want you to look at what you're playing. How many times have you heard Destiny players? They've only played Destiny, or World of Warcraft players only play World of Warcraft, or like they're honed in. And that is what Microsoft is looking for. They're looking for that type of person, that type of gamer. Card game, this is the best card game you can get. Maybe not, but they want you to play that card game by season pass, events. Fallout 76, there's Fallout 76. You like Fallout, there's more Fallout for you, right? World of Warcraft, MMO, there's an MMO for you. That's what they're trying to do. So I don't see developers going, you know what, screw Microsoft, I'm leaving here. I'm going to go to, well, no one's hiring. And our independent studio can't raise money because there's not enough money out there to invest in these companies, right?
With all of that in mind, I think the eyes in the next couple of weeks, especially once we get on the other side of Hellblade 2, I think we're going to see Hellblade 2, and people are going to say, okay, can at least the Xbox brand redeem itself with having like a good first release of the year? It'll be their first party release of the year. And I think once we get on the other side of that, all eyes are going to be turning to the Xbox showcase, right?
Sure.
And the closer we get to this, you and I may do a stream, a prediction stream, reaction stream or something. So we may revisit this. But with how quickly all of this is happening, what do you think the tone of this Xbox showcase is going to be? Do you think they literally walk out and just start announcing games for PlayStation, for Nintendo? Like, do they say, do they use their platform and their reach to be like, yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is coming to Nintendo or whatever, whatever the next batch of games or platforms is? Because there were people that saw, Sarah Bond put a green heart and a blue heart, and people were like, ooh, the blue heart's for PlayStation. But other people are like, no, the blue heart's for Blizzard. So there's obviously room for interpretation there as to what in the world she was meaning. Like, hey, the showcase, like, she's not just putting the green heart. And we do know they're going to have the follow-up be about Call of Duty. It'll be Black Ops 5. I believe that's what they're calling it from what I deduced from the art.
That's not the Gulf War thing? Is that the Gulf War? But it's called Black Ops 5?
It sounds like you're saying Golf War.
Golf.
Yeah, just you have a slight accent. So it's like the Golf War. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be fighting with golf balls and golf clubs. No, yeah, the Gulf War. Correct. Black Ops, but I believe they're calling it Black Ops 5 from the promotional artwork that they had like redacted. You can perfectly overlay Black Ops 5 over that. So I think for whatever reason they've decided not to do the reboot strategy that they use with Modern Warfare. So yeah, do you think they're going to use this showcase to focus? Because, from my perspective, why bother even talking about Xbox exclusives or this is only for Xbox? There's no reason to even talk about that anymore. That's a lost. That's not even a thing anymore, right? Like, what do you think they're going to use this showcase for?
Yeah, I think it's weird though that all of this information came out 3 weeks, a month before the showcase. Like, they're like, let's get this off our chest now, because people have goldfish brains, and by the time the thing comes around, certain people will be upset. But hopefully they come out and and what are they going to show us? Gears 6, which is probably like another 2 years off minimum, right? Like, they show us more Fable. They show us. I don't know if they tell you it's coming out on PlayStation though. I don't know if they take their moment at their showcase to tell you it's coming out on someone else's platform. I don't see that happening. I think it could be assumed that those things would be coming out, but I don't think they take their time to say, hey, it's coming out on the competitors' platforms. You don't actually need to watch us right now. You can watch their things later. Like, I think they'll keep it to Xbox and tell you, world premiere, Xbox day and date. Still, I still think they beat that drum moving forward. I don't see them advertising saying that it's coming to PlayStation. Maybe they use words like on all platforms, or you know what I mean, like on more screens, more places. But I don't think they say, yeah, it's coming to PlayStation. Like, I don't think they do that.
My personal theory is that they are going to have their world premiere, and then they're going to do, play a day and date on Game Pass. I think they're still going to stress that to a degree. Right. But I also think there's going to be some sort of messaging about, here at Xbox, we see our community growing every day. And they're going to celebrate and draw attention to Sea of Thieves and what it's done on PlayStation 5. Sure. They're going to walk through that. And then they're going to say something to the effect of, and we have even bigger plans to continue to expand that community. Sure. Here are some more games.
Be very generalistic about it. Yeah, not saying it's coming to PlayStation.
But they'll say, here are more games coming. I think they're going to do that. I think they're going to celebrate what has happened with the games that left.
I agree with you. I just don't think they mention PlayStation by name.
Oh, I don't know. I think they might, because Satya Nadella gets on a shareholders call and he's like, we had 7 of the top 25 games on PlayStation. Like, this is the CEO of Microsoft talking to Microsoft and saying, we're doing great on PlayStation.
He's also talking to the shareholders, though.
Yeah. He's signaling that we're having great success doing this. We're going to do more of this.
I understand that, but when you talk to their stakeholders, they want to know where the money's coming from and where it's going. Like, these are the people that actually care what's happening with the business, where the consumers just want to know where their games are coming from. There's a completely different set of tone when you're talking. Like if you're a stockholder in any of these companies, if it's Sony or Microsoft, you want to know where your money's going and how much money you're going to get back and how you're doing. But if you're just a person that buys a Microsoft game or a Sony game, they don't care about you. You're just the oil that they're barreling out of the ground to make those guys money.
I just don't think there is a version of Xbox anymore that cares about mentioning PlayStation. They don't care. That's not going to be a disruption. That's part of what they're going to do. They're going to say, I think they're going to celebrate. We love, we love expanding the Xbox family. And Sea of Thieves, this number of players on PlayStation, and we were so happy. They're going to create this idea that, like, we're arms wide open to the industry. Here's more games for you. I do. I think they use the showcase this year to drive that messaging home. I don't think there's this care anymore about, we can't say PlayStation and Nintendo because we're Xbox. It's like, no, use your platform to, like's being said in chat, they're going to try to court the PlayStation users and the Nintendo Switch owners. Like, that's a lot of people to say, hey, we've got games coming for you.
I agree with you up to the point of they don't just name the name. It's like, don't say Beetlejuice. You know what I mean? Like, you just reference it, but you don't say it at their showcase. That's what I'm saying. I have no doubt that after the fact, that when you see a trailer on YouTube and it comes across the board, it has PlayStation at the bottom of the title. I'm not arguing with that. At the actual event, I don't think they say PlayStation.
Okay.
If they say anything, it'll be very generalistic of a broad, like, we have more screens than everybody else, or you can play it everywhere, you know what I mean, type of thing. I don't think they say PlayStation.
I could even see them sort of saying something like what you're saying, where they're like, all the games that we just announced are coming this year, day and date Game Pass. They'll be they'll be on Xbox. They'll only be on Xbox. And then they'll transition to say, like what you're saying, but we also really want to celebrate bringing our games to more screens because we believe when everybody plays, we all win. And here are some games coming to more platforms. And they'll have like a montage of games. It'll be really interesting to see who's right, because we'll obviously cover it. Then you and I we'll break it down, because I personally think they do. They just rip the Band-Aid off. They just make it obvious that they're like, because I told people today and the other day, I said, I think that Xbox podcast where they spoke very directly about the 4 games coming and they were trying to rebuild this confidence in Xbox. I said, I think that's the last time they speak directly to the Xbox loyal. I just don't think that's the plan going forward.
Right.
I think there's just no reason to do that. There's no reason to create this idea of Like when Phil on the Kind of Funny interview was like, we don't want the Xbox console users to feel like second-class citizens, or however he phrased it. I just don't think they're going to do that anymore. I think they're going to stop talking to the Xbox loyal, and they're going to start talking to the global gaming audience about, hey, we're bringing our games everywhere. We hope you like these games, because they're in the selling games business now. Like that's the pivot for the brand into being more of a publisher, I think.
Yeah, like I said, I agree that they'll. I just don't think they say the name. They don't say the name right off the bat, and I do think they're. I mean, like someone's saying in the chat, they're doing that mobile app supposedly in July. Not supposedly, actually a fact. In July, they're doing their own mobile store now, with Candy Crush and Minecraft and all that other stuff. What's the other one they have? Candy Saga or whatever the hell. There's Candy Crush and I forget the other one.
Yeah, and they did say, because somebody in chat saying it's an app. It's actually not going to be an app. They're going to do it through the browser, because Sarah Bond.
So it's a launcher then through the browser.
Well, she basically said when they do it through the browser, they get around all of the
Apple Store and stuff like that.
Yeah, they get around.
That's what I
all
mentioned
that.
last night. I was like, is it an app? That's why I said I don't know if it's true or not. I was like, I was like, how are they going to do that with Apple? I was like, Epic has already had this problem where that's why they made it the browser. So, okay, you cleared it up for me. So it is a browser.
Do you remember who helped Epic with Fortnite to do that?
Yeah, Microsoft.
And I said at the time, I said, Apple's not going to like Microsoft having King, because they'll be like, all right, we're going to put it over here in a browser-based storefront so we don't have to deal with the Apple Store. And like, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Do you think they yank some of those mobile games out of the Apple Store and you can only get them through?
Well, that would go against what you're saying before, because if they're going to put games everywhere and on PlayStation, then why would they rip them out of the Apple Store to put them on their web browser? You know what I mean?
Because you can still get it on Apple. You just have to go through the web browser.
I guess, sure. But if it's in the Apple Store, and it's also on the browser, you know what I mean? It's just more places for people. I agree, though. It's like it's very confusing. It's like I do see a picture, though, Lono, where they do pull the stuff from the Apple Store and then put it on their own browser store. I can see that. That's a definite corporate move right there.
No one's going to browser stores on their phones. I mean, people did it for Fortnite.
Fortnite says otherwise.
Yeah, people do. If you say, hey, we're shutting, you literally could just put a link inside of Candy Crush and say, hey, we've launched a new version of Candy Crush. And you just change the name, right? And it just takes them to the browser to download it. And that totally bypasses. Like, I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of ways to get around that and to get adoption rates with people. It's
50 million downloads for their Call of Duty. If they move that over to the browser, I guarantee you, maybe it won't be 50 million, but whatever millions of people they would move because they want to play Call of Duty. That's the IPs that we were talking about.
Yeah, you put a little pop-up inside Call of Duty Mobile and say, hey, we're launching a new Call of Duty Mobile, and there's a link right here. You click the link, and it takes you to the browser to download it, and you just bypass the Apple Store. And, people are like, we're not talking about gamers. We're talking about my mom. Like, yeah, that's exactly how they trick people like that, because they don't know any better. They're just like, oh, yes, give me the new thing, and they'll just click. Now, somebody in chat saying Phil should get fired. I mean,
they've said that 15 times. Yeah.
Yeah, you could feel free to put an actual argument in chat as to why you think he should be fired, because I personally think he's like the last person at the table that even cares about games. I mean that. I think Phil's the last guy at the table that cares about games. Microsoft doesn't care about games. They care about money.
You're saying he cares about games.
Yeah.
He's the last person to care about games.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say, because someone, a YouTuber, my brother brought it up last night on the podcast. Someone was upset with Phil Spencer because he had like 180 hours or something like that playing games like on Xbox. And I'm like, why would you be upset that the CEO of a gaming company is playing games? Like, he literally plays games while he's on an airplane traveling from one to the other to see what that game is. Like, he is the gamer. Like, he's that guy that works the 60-hour weeks, and then when he has time in between not sleeping, he's playing games to figure out when he goes to that studio what their game is. We have a new build. We want to show you the build. Okay, great. Send it to my account. And then he plays the game and figures it out. Like, I don't understand someone that gets upset that the CEO of the company, of Xbox, is playing video games, and they're getting upset. They're like, well, if he wasn't playing 180 hours of games, he could maybe save the studios. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't understand that mentality. Like, the dude is exactly what you want, a gamer in charge of a gaming company, and yet people are upset with him because, I don't know, they don't have their favorite game out yet on their platform. I'm confused by this.
I've continued to read through try to read between the lines, and I feel like when Phil did the Kind of Funny interview, he signaled and let us know that, you know, he feels shackled. He feels annoyed. It's like he stressed creative. He said the word creative like multiple times. I truly think that he has been fighting to get Xbox into a place where the games are freed up to build in the way that they want and to flourish and to grow. And I don't feel like he's been able to do that. I feel like Microsoft has completely shackled him and shackled the studios. And I think that's the terrible irony is that Microsoft brought all this about. It's like you lost in I said in the last stream at the Xbox One, they basically let the marketing guys in the room and they designed a console around what they thought would do well with marketing, with like TV, that whole thing with the console that the always online and the price point and the TV focus. It just murdered the Xbox One. And it was like, if you would have had a gamer in the room, they would have been like, no, this is stupid. What are you doing? Like, Phil doesn't walk in the room until after this point. Like, basically, the Xbox One does so terribly. They're considering shuttering the gaming division. Phil's the last man standing at that point, and he's like, no, we can keep going. And he convinces them. He's put in charge, basically, and then Satya's at the helm of Microsoft. And I think from that point forward, he was fighting a losing battle. I just don't think he could get the games where they needed to go with the contract policies alone. I don't think Microsoft is ever going to have a studio that flourishes under their ownership because Microsoft doesn't treat game development studios the way that they ought to be treated. They treat them the way they treat teams that work on Microsoft Office or an operating system. Like, if you lose people that have been working on Microsoft Office or an operating system, that's utilitarian software. You just get somebody else to come in and fix the problems, fix the bugs, or make the tools work. But when you're working on a game, like the synergy that you have, like the way that you and I are able to do a talk show like this after doing talk shows together for 10 years, when I sit down and do a talk show with somebody else, there's a lack of that fluidity and familiarity because I've not been working with them for 10 years. So it's like, imagine losing that in a studio the size of 200 to 300 to 400 to 500 people. Like, it's absolutely destructive. So I see more studios being closed, more talent leaving, and I see the quality of games going down from Microsoft ownership of all these studios. I don't see a silver lining here.
Do you see game quality going down across the board in the industry or just specifically for Xbox?
I think Xbox published games will be they will come to market and not be ready. They will be in bad shape. They will clearly feel rushed. I'm worried about that for Hellblade 2. I don't feel like they've had enough time. You know, I feel like they were basically.
But is that? I'm sorry to interrupt. Isn't that happening though with Ubisoft and EA and CD Projekt Red and all these other big studios and big companies that own multiple IPs and titles that they're coming out with games rushed, unfinished, right? That's not just a Microsoft thing. Now, I do understand what you're saying as far as because of Game Pass, they will rush things out because that's the beast of the engine that's happening with Microsoft itself. But I think the industry in general still has games that are come out broke, buggy, unfinished. That's across the board of the industry.
Well, I think there's a measurable pattern of talent exodus from Xbox because I outlined that in the video this morning. You're constantly losing creative directors. Everwild, Halo went through multiple creative directors. Fable, Playground Games. You've got the studio behind Perfect Dark lost like half its staff along with creative directors. So I feel like there's a measurable pattern of people saying, like, I don't want to work in these conditions. This doesn't work. We're out. We're leaving. And that pattern is worrisome. I don't think you're wrong. I think there are studios that say, we'll just bring it to market. We've got to get this out the door. But I don't see massive talent exodus underneath Sony or Nintendo or just large or like EA, Embracer, Tencent. I don't see a pattern of talent exodus from those conglomerates of developers. I see this primarily at Xbox. That's the pattern, and it's like that to me is concerning because if no one wants to work there. That was what Jim Ryan said. He's like, you're going to have management and talent loss. No one's going to want to work in that kind of an environment. They're going to leave. And then what are you going to do? How are you going to manage all these studios?
I mean, again, Microsoft, though, I mean, look at what Embracer Group's doing, right? They're doing the exact same thing, and they're not a Microsoft. But in the gaming sphere, they had 148 studios, I think, underneath their belt at one point. I don't know what they have now. I think they have like 120. They've let go or closed down multiple studios. So I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of we still have some of the best games we've ever had in the industry. Now, obviously, we do see a lot more crappier games because, again, there's more studios making games. There's more companies making games. There's just more games in general out there. So we do see a lot more of the wet farts of the industry.
Yeah, I think this is a common thing in gaming commentary where if you fixate on the bad, it seems like that's all there is. But then if you fixate on the good, like I don't have enough time to play all the great games that have come out.
Exactly.
So that makes it really easy to ignore the bad ones. It's like, if your game's bad, who cares? I got 8 games waiting for me that are award-winning and highly reviewed and highly praised. So I want to read this super chat here. Carlos Fontes says, wild that Xbox didn't focus on exclusives. Marriage isn't working, and instead of being a better husband, Xbox told the missus to actively date other guys by putting games on PlayStation. Great plan. I don't know if I track with that analogy.
Yeah, I don't know if I track with that either.
But I'll take the first part.
Good effort, though. It's a good effort.
Yeah, it's a good effort. I'll take the first part of the super chat with the exclusives. I think that's well stated that they basically turned their back on exclusivity as like, we don't want to do that anymore. And PlayStation said, well, all right, we'll do it then. And they gobbled up Call of Duty, and they really hit them hard during the PlayStation 4 era. And it was like, well, that honestly was the kind of the beginning of the end, and that's why this gen, I think a lot of people thought, well, Xbox is going to come out swinging, and I thought people thought ABK was it, like this is it, Xbox is going to get back, not get back, but they're going to get on top, or they're going to get momentum, and I don't think people realize that ABK was quite literally their strategy to get out of the traditional gaming fight and to completely change the brand entirely. Like Activision Blizzard, for at least in the way I view it, that was quite literally the hinge. It's like everything turned on that. All the language started changing, the way the CFO talked, the way Phil talked. It's like once they got ABK, it was like a page turn of a book. It's like we're in a new chapter now. This is completely different. And with the rest of this year, you've got Hellblade 2, you've got Avowed, you've got Stalker 2, and you have Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
Out of those titles, like I've expressed concern about Hellblade 2. Where are you on interest meter? Like, and then are these studios in danger? Like once their project's out, it's like, well, you're not working on anything. It's time to go. Like, is that a concern as well? Is like once these projects ship, are the devs in danger?
It all depends, right? Right now, no. But if the game comes out and doesn't get enough engagement, this is what I was talking about earlier. Like if Avowed comes out, and what's Avowed's price tag? Do we know? Is it like $30, $40? We don't know anything about it yet, right?
It'll probably be a full price game, I would think.
But I don't know. Hellblade what's Hellblade? $50? $40?
Well, yeah, but Hellblade is maybe an 8 to 10 hour game. I think Avowed's going to be like a full game. It'll probably be a $60 to $70 game, I would think.
My point is like Hi-Fi Rush wasn't a full price game, right? And like there's games that come out on Game Pass that their full price is smaller than the full price $70 game. So if it comes out and it's $70, that's going to be a big kick in the nuts for them, because I don't think they do survive that, because I don't think you're going to get enough people that buy that game and then engage with the rest of it on Game Pass. Because I look at it this way. I said this yesterday. I'll do it off of Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is $30. Okay, if you buy Hi-Fi Rush, it's $30, and that goes to towards the game company or whatever. But if you don't buy Hi-Fi Rush and you pay 1 month and you play it for 8 hours, 10 hours, you put it down, you're done. That's $10. That's $10 towards Hi-Fi Rush. You don't touch anything else on Game Pass. You just got Game Pass that month to play Hi-Fi Rush. Okay, well, now you bought it. Or not buy it. You played it on Game Pass. I played it on Game Pass. That's $20. And then Dave in chat also gets it. That's $30. Now that covers for that 3 of us that are playing it on Game Pass for that 1 month, that covers one more sale for Hi-Fi Rush. You see what I'm saying? So they have to have so much engagement on Game Pass that people are literally paying that $10 that month or $12 that month to keep playing for that new game. And if that game comes out and doesn't get that interaction for that month or 2 months or 3 months that it's out before the next game comes out on Game Pass, then it's a failure. So it's not as easy as saying what happens to the studios. Do they close down? Right now, no. But if Avowed comes out and doesn't sell enough and doesn't get enough engagement on Game Pass, yes, 100% it could. Because if it's not a full price game, well, how are they going to make their money back from it? Because the difference between a third-party game and a first-party game, Microsoft gives a check to the third-party guys, right? They're not giving a check to the first-party team. They're already paying their salaries, right? So it's easier for a third-party company to come on to Game Pass because they get that check up front, which is a huge chunk of the total price that they have to get back, where it's for first-party title, they're not getting that. They just got their salaries. They just got the thing. They put the game out there, and now they just wait. Is it successful? Is the engagement enough? And that's why I think Phil Spencer says, we don't know what success is yet. We don't know what makes success on the stuff because each one's different. So what am I excited about? I'm excited about Avowed, and I'm excited about Indiana Jones. Those are the 2 things. I have no interest in Hellblade 2. I have no interest in what was the other game that you mentioned? I didn't even know it.
Stalker 2?
There was Stalker 2. I have no interest in Stalker 2. I didn't play the first one. I'm not going to play the second one. So I'll play Avowed and I'll play Indiana Jones, and those are the 2 that I'm interested in.
Yeah, the way I look at it is I want them, and I don't think they're going to do this, but I'd love for them to speak frankly about, okay, so if Hi-Fi wasn't enough to keep Tango around, what are your expectations of these games? Like, what's your expectation, Xbox? Like, what do you expect Avowed to do? You're putting it on Game Pass. So what are your sales expectations? 25 million people don't have to buy it. You got 25 million Game Pass subscribers. So what are your expectations of this game? Because if it doesn't hit those expectations, then what are you going to do next? Like, my personal thought is all these games are coming to PlayStation because they're going to literally say, we're not going to hit any kind of sales targets because of Game Pass, so we've got to put it somewhere where it can sell. Like, I think Starfield's going to set the pattern for a lot of these titles. It's like, okay, spend a bunch of time polishing it up, create a complete edition, and then we're going to sell it. We're going to sell it over here to try to make some of the money back. But then the worry would be, are they all going to get treated like Tango? And it's like, well, thanks so much. You got Avowed ready for the other platforms. Now we can own the IP, sell the IP, and get rid of you. Like, the fact that Hi-Fi got rated for Nintendo and Tango's now gone, it's like, I don't know. Do they get any kind of bonuses from sales? Because they're not there anymore. So all that money goes to Microsoft. And so to me, it's like, if this is the plan going forward, then I think they're going to move to day and date. Like, every title's just going to hit everywhere because that's the best route for them to actually hit sales targets for these games. I think these poor games that are in this valley that are going to have to land on Xbox and Game Pass first, I think those are the games that are going to be the most hurt by this, because it's like they're not being given an opportunity to generate that revenue and those sales, which will obviously, the eye of Microsoft will turn on them and say, get out of here.
Right, it's the eye of Sauron. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, it's brutal because they don't know the success, and they're never going to tell us the numbers, right? We don't know that X factor of what the budget was of the game. And again, to be honest, it's none of our business as just consumers that are just buying games. Like, it's none of our business what the budget is and then how much money they have to make back. We like it because we're a bunch of nerds and we like to know what the numbers are, and we like to figure out what's successful and not successful, because that's what drives things, right? Like a movie, if a movie's selling well the first week and we're like, oh, did you hear that's really good? And then you want to go watch it. That's the hype meter type of stuff. Where you don't see that, then we look at player numbers. Then we look at other things. We're looking for something to tell us this game is popular in any way, shape, or form, right? So as a company, they don't have to tell us, but as consumers, we would love to know what makes it successful, because I thought Hi-Fi Rush was awesome, and I wish it was continuing on, right? I thought Redfall was an absolute pile of, poo-poo on your channel, okay? All right? So how does one company get canned and the other company gets rewarded by getting merged in with the rest of the group? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Tango is the one that really pisses me off, because I like that game. I bought that game. And again, people always say, well, buy the games that you want to support, and apparently not a lot of people supported it, but yet more people are coming out of the woodwork now that they really like the game, but did they buy it? That I go back to it again. Did they buy it? I don't think they bought it.
Well, and thank you so much, Mitch, for a 20 gifted bomb. I usually don't shout those out. And guys, take a second. There's so many of you here. If you haven't done so yet, hit that like button. It does help this video out later, and we get a little bit less likes when I do a stream with somebody else because I don't get to ask them as often. So check in and make sure you've done that. Somebody just said it in chat. Nightfire said, I guarantee you what Lono just said a lot of the devs are thinking and whispering about. That's my point, is like, that how do the devs even know what success means underneath Microsoft ownership if, like you just said, like, okay, and Tango? What did Tango do wrong? Like, why is Tango gone? Oh, they weren't working on a project? Well, then, oh my gosh, they're always going to want to daisy chain to another project. Like, oh, quick, we're about to ship a game, start up a project. Like, that's the question these devs are going to have. And if they can't get a clear answer, that just kills morale. That causes more talent exodus. That kills quality of games. Because, like, what if you can't say to a developer, this is what we expect from you, this is the targets we want you, these are the targets we want you to hit? It seems almost unjust to turn around and be like, well, we're the boss, and we took your game and did this with it and murdered its sales, and then we're gonna hold you responsible for that.
Right.
I don't know. It makes me furious because we said this all last year. We kept talking about how they would brag about player numbers, like the Starfield 10 million.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something. 3 million wasn't enough to save Hi-Fi Rush. Why do you think 10 million is so impressive for Starfield?
Because they paid $100 for it when it first came out for the 3-day early access, right? That's the difference.
Oh, I don't. But how many of the 10 million do you think did that, though? Seriously.
Well, we know for a fact 2 million paid $100 because that was the pre-orders of 2 million people paid $100 to get that early access, right? After that, we have no idea, right? That's the only number we have factual stuff on, is the 2 million people got it 5 days early access, meaning that they paid $100. Then there was the people that had Game Pass that paid $30, but we don't know that number, right? We don't know how many people on Game Pass paid $30 to get the early access to play it, right? All we have is the 2 million people that paid $100, and that's all we know. Everything else is 10 million players, right? But they do that for all things, right? They just said Dead Rising 2 just passed, a certain milestone for millions of people. And it's like, okay, but how many did you sell? How many did you sell, right? Alan Wake 2, fastest selling game to their thing, is most, but yet they haven't made their money back, right? They haven't made their budget back yet for the game, right? So why are you telling me all these numbers of these millions of people playing the game, but yet now you've closed the studio down? So why even say those numbers? They use those numbers for marketing purposes to tell you, well, 2 million people have played it. Are you one of them? If not, maybe you should be. That's what they use these numbers for. They don't actually tell you the sales numbers.
Well, somebody in chat saying that Tango was working on something. No, they weren't. No, they were in the pitching phase. They were pitching the next game, which was likely Hi-Fi 2, and that's why they were cut. They basically said, anybody actively working on a project, let's keep them, because then obviously we can sell whatever they're making. But if you weren't working on something, that's it. Like, you're gone. And I think that just shows you, if you're a dev right now under Microsoft's ownership, that has to be a very foreboding shadow to sit under. Like, who wants to work in that? Like, well, I guess we're not going to, that's why everybody immediately, I couldn't believe how quickly everybody just turned to being like, well, what's going to happen to Ninja Theory? Like, they're a small studio. Their game's not going to have mass market appeal. It's not going to have a ton of sales. Like, are you going to do the same thing to Ninja Theory? Like, I got really hot about that this morning. It's like, this is one of my favorite games and favorite franchises. This is my most anticipated game of the year. And now it has this ominous shadow over it. It's like, well, I've already had fear that it's not ready, and what's going to happen next? Like, is this what we're going to see now? Is just a machine that spits out games and then shuts the studios down? And it really makes me look to, I really do. I really look at PlayStation and Nintendo, and I'm like, you guys will be the knights in shining armor in this scenario. It's like, you're going to be the ones that stick to the plan to say, first party property matters, exclusives matter, like pushing hardware matters. Like, that's where, we're hearing, I think, pretty impressive leaks about the Switch 2. I'm like, okay, this thing could actually be a really, really nice device, especially considering it's portable. where do you see yourself landing? Like, because I know you, I think,
far as
like, where do you see yourself? Xbox has apparently got, new hardware on the way. We got a PlayStation 5 Pro, a Switch 2 is almost assuredly coming next year. Are you going to be this eclectic gamer that has it all? Do you feel like you're going to gravitate to one place? Where do you see this affecting you? Because I think up to now you've been pretty, not that you're an Xbox guy, but you've got Xboxes. Like, you're kind of ingrained in that.
I have everything except the PlayStation 5.
Okay.
I have literally every console up until the PlayStation 5. I have Xbox this generation. But that's mostly because of the friends I have that also are in the ecosystem, right? So I play PC games, I play Xbox games, I play Switch games, I play MetaQuest games. I just don't have a PlayStation 5. One, because, and I've said this before on your channel, I'll say it again, I had $500 and I bought one console over the other, and that's because of life preferences, because of people that are in my inner circles that also, right? Why would I buy a PlayStation 5 when all my other friends have an Xbox? Be like, well, I can't play with you. Sorry, it's not crossplay, right? So obviously, you lean towards where your circle is. Going forward, if Xbox comes out with a new console, I'm not buying an Xbox console. If PlayStation comes out with a PlayStation 6, I'm not buying it right away. You've burned me this console round. Congratulations, you guys have won. I'm gonna sit back and wait. Until then, I'll play on PC games because, again, Xbox games come day and date on PC and Xbox. PlayStation games come out after the fact, and who knows, down the road they could be day and date as well, right? And then I have my Switch that I play. So I'm not hyped up about any new system coming out. Most people buy a system 2-3 years into the cycle anyway, because you have to wait that long for actual games to be made and developed. Because as soon as they announce the console, the devs are going out that they don't have enough time to actually put a game out there. You get games like Rise of Ronin or 18. What was that game on PlayStation? 18. God, chat, help me out here. 1880, is that what it was called? The
Order 1886.
1886, right? You get games like that where they're good games, but you can tell they were just put out there because they had to put something out for the system to sell the system, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Do you see yourself getting a PS5 Pro? Because that sometimes is a great time to dive in, because you're going to get all these great games boosted up, and then you're mid-gen, so you have so many games kind of like in almost an immediate backlog. It
would have to be, I said this a couple weeks ago on your show, if Grand Theft Auto and PlayStation had like a timed exclusive, and it was only on PlayStation 5, 100% I would pick up a PlayStation 5 Pro to play Grand Theft Auto 6, right? Like, that would be a no-brainer for me. One, because of a content creator, and two, I like the franchise of the stuff. So that would be something that I would buy it. Other than that, nothing really like sticks out for me to go, well, because I when I got my PlayStation 4 and I was late, I was 3 years in, I played Miles Morales and Spider-Man. I also picked up God of War, Last of Us, Horizon. I played God of War, I played Last of Us, but I never went and played Horizon, right? So there's games I still haven't even touched. Ghost of Tsushima's coming out soon. It's going to be on PC. I'm kind of a little upset what they're doing with the PC guys in the other countries where they can't play it, even though they don't want to play anything of PvP. They just want to buy the game, so I'm a little upset with that. But yeah, so the games that are coming out for PlayStation are coming out for PC down the road anyway. I have such a backlog of games. I don't have to play new games right away, except for the newest games that I'm interested in. That would also be good viewership for my channel.
Yeah, I think that's always a challenge when you amass that backlog. You're like, well, I could buy a PlayStation 5, but then I would just have more backlogged games. So for me, I think my interest in future Xbox hardware is obviously more as a creator. Like, I don't think at this point, like, if I was not a content creator or like a YouTuber, I would just be done with them. I'd be like, there's just no reason. Like, even the Xbox loyal guys, the personalities, on Twitter, they're like, I'm done. I'm switching teams, which I think is weird. You don't necessarily have to switch teams. You could just start playing somewhere else. I just don't think I would see it as switching teams. Like, if I wasn't a content creator, I would just be like, I don't think I'm just interested. I just don't want anything from Xbox anymore. There's no real reason. They're putting their games everywhere, so why? But I definitely think if they come out with this PC hybrid handheld thing that we're hearing like rumors about, I think I would get it just because of what the hardware functionality would potentially give me, especially if I could sideload Steam on it. We're hearing rumors and speculation that that's what their next thing is going to be like. Suddenly having Steam in my living room and not having to put a PC out there, I like that idea. I'm like, oh. So then it's like I'm not really buying an Xbox. I'm buying a solution. It's more of like a hardware solution for my life where, oh, now I can play Hades 2 early access in my living room without having to get a PC up and running out there and a wireless keyboard and mouse. Like the simplicity of a console really is appealing, especially when you have limited space. It's like I've already got a lot of stuff in not a great, setup. It's very utilitarian. I don't have like the greatest entertainment center. So I would be interested though, as that is like more of like a tech solution, but I wouldn't see it as I was buying like an Xbox platform. It would feel very different because like for me, Xbox was the console that got me back into console gaming. I got sick of needing to, I went to play some games on my PC and I couldn't play them. Gears of War ran terribly. Call of Duty 4 required a brand new processor. I needed I think it was a quad core at the time. And it was going to be a domino effect. It was like, well, if I get a new CPU, I'll need a new motherboard. And then I was going to have to basically replace everything. And I was like, or I could just go buy an Xbox 360 and play with my friends. Like that's what brought me back. So for me, the 360 era and the Xbox One era, I amassed this enormous library. And it does feel weird now that I see, my library over here is growing on the PlayStation. And it even is growing on Steam because I'll periodically check out these indie titles or games that are early access, like No Rest for the Wicked. And it's like, well, I got to go to PC. And it's just interesting that as Xbox did this evolution and change, I think a lot of us just also evolved and changed as well. Like we drifted or went in different directions. So I was just interested, like, do you see this impacting where you land at all? It sounds like you're going to be a little bit more rooted in PC.
Yeah.
Would you snag this Switch 2 as soon as possible when it comes out? I mean, I think with kids it's a little different because I know my kids would definitely want one.
Yeah, so me personally, no. But I also have a 9-year-old, so yes. Yeah.
I just want to see that performance bump in games like Zelda. It's like, dude, I really, really want to play Tears of the Kingdom and not have to, deal with the frame rate. It's like, man, that's just so hard to go back to now. I don't even like, I stopped playing Final Fantasy 16 because you don't get consistent frame rate when you're not in combat. It really, really affects it. So it's kind of a sour note that I'll be coming back from vacation, excited to dive into Hellblade and be like, I got to play it on PC. Like, I won't be able to get the performance. And you and I didn't even get a chance to talk about this. The Starfield 60 FPS update, that's hitting next week, right? What do you make of that? Because it was this very much defended thing. It's a creative decision. I actually said this week, I think the 60 FPS update to Starfield landing the week before Hellblade 2, I actually think that hurts Hellblade 2 and Ninja Theory. Because they walk out and say it's a creative decision, it's more cinematic, right after Starfield basically is like, yeah, not really. We just pushed out an update and,
I hated it when they said that. I was like, why didn't you just put it out that way? Why didn't you put it out that way? We talked about it a little bit on the after show last week because I said if they put the 60 frames out, then and they couldn't get it out at launch, then people wouldn't have bought Starfield on day one. They would have held their money and hold out for that 60 frames if they knew it was coming. But they told us it wasn't coming because it was a creative decision. So we're like, there's no 60 frames coming. And I could have sworn on a podcast last year, I said 30 frames at launch, 60 down the road. And everyone in chat was like, no, it's not going to happen. I was like, we'll see. I mean, and here it is. And I'm kind of pissed about it. But at the same time, it's like, great, I put 192 hours into the game at 30 frames per second. And now you're giving it to me at 60 frames per second. And I'll be like, I'll put an extra 2 hours in just to see what it is.
Well, I'm going to be gone. So like if you want to showcase it on the Series X, let people see this thing cuz I think
I'm going to be playing it. I'm going to be playing it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, guys, make sure and do that. Make sure and check him out there. I need to make sure his name's clickable in the description below. Sometimes it doesn't let me do that from copy and paste.
I'm saying, Milton, manually. like it's 192 hours too late in my playthrough that I'm playing 60 frames per second now. Fantastic.
Well, and I think you did. I think you were like, you might have did one of your like Mike-isms where you were like, how funny would it be if they did this later? They brought 60 FPS later after defending it. I think you said something to that effect.
Yeah, you asked me, you said, is it 60 or 30 at launch? I said, it's going to be 30. It's going to be 30 at launch. I said, and they'll probably put 60 down the road, is what I said. Just as again, a Mike-ism, as you said, right? And sure enough, almost 1 year, almost 1 year later, they put that goddamn thing out.
Yeah, it's I do think the timing is it It really, really sucks. My volume's low. My volume's not low. I think it sucks. I think it sucks that you've got this 60 FPS update coming to Starfield literally the week before another 30 FPS first party title. Like it just, I think people are going to say, then why is Hellblade shipping like this? It's just it's another unfortunate, turn of events for Ninja Theory, that their game's now going to have this sort of like, well, hey, Starfield figured it out, so this is just another incomplete game. Like, what's the deal here?
I think it's funny that I don't like the way they're doing games right now, right? Like, for instance, Ubisoft selling the game with the live service game and stuff, and now what happened to Redfall? I know it's two separate companies, but Redfall had this, DLC season pass that they sold people, and now it never came out. And they were going to work on an offline mode, which now they're not working on. So it irritates me that, like, Starfield charged also for DLC. Now, obviously, Starfield's a little different story than Redfall, but the point still stands. Like, you're giving money to a company for content that you have nothing or know nothing about with any of these games, and yet people still give the $125 up front and wait a year and a half for stuff to come into the game. We're paying for games at full price for less features, and then down the road, people that pay less money get more features. And I understand it's a business thing, you know what I mean? Like, if you buy a television day one, you pay $2,000, but if I get that same TV 6 months later, I pay like $600, I get it for cheaper. But they're not adding features to that TV. The TV still has the same features, right? You're just getting it for a discounted price. With video games, you're paying up front, and now they even got you for the 3-day early access or the 5-day early access, and they include the these sneaky bastards. They include the DLC into that 3-day early access. So you're not really paying for the DLC. You're paying for the 3-day early access, then you get the DLC that you don't get for a year or a year and a half later, which I hate the way this industry is going with that.
I don't think I got your opinion on Game Pass. What do you think with the day and date and the ultimate price going up? Like with my theory, do you think that's likely? Do you see it going differently with how I think it is going to change?
I've said that they're going to raise the price, and people keep fighting me back and saying that they're not going to raise the price. I'm like, they're going to raise the price because they're going to keep adding value, and that's why I said earlier, like, if they add World of Warcraft or something, then they're going to charge you $20. I said $20, $25. Now, I asked this to my chat. I'm going to ask it to your chat. If you guys take Game Pass out of it, just a streaming service, right? A gaming service. If PlayStation does it and Game Pass does it, Nintendo does it, what's that price that you would pay up to before you went, yeah, that's too much, right? Like, what is that price? Is that price $20? Is that price $25? Is that price $30? What is it? Because they're going to be testing it soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it lands in the 20s. I think it lands at 20, maybe 25. I don't know if you could go much higher than 25, to be quite honest. Yeah. Well, yeah, yet I don't know. I mean, with inflation, I mean, who knows? In 10 years, $30 is our 20 now, right? Like, yeah, but I think it lands in the 20s, 20, 25. And I don't know when they announce that. I wonder if they're going to have to do that, announce that, or push that before the showcase. Like, you've got to get that out of the way if that's happening, because the rumor is that they're internally discussing it and planning for Ultimate, and then they're debating about Call of Duty, and I think that's what comes out of that. That Call of Duty will come, since apparently Sarah Bond heavily hinted at that, or she actually said it. I'm not sure the exact quote. As far as I can tell, she's being represented in articles as saying, like, no, Call of Duty is coming to Game Pass day one. And if that's the case, I would think they're going to want to have that change before that happens. Yeah. And
I can see that.
That'll just be more tears in the street. The guys that really were cheering hard for Xbox last year, looks like the wind got just sucked out of the room. It's like, no, the air got sucked out of the room, or the wind got knocked out of them. It's like, man, there's, I don't even know what, I told a guy this morning, I was like, I don't even know what you're defending anymore. Like, what are you defending? Like, what's the brand? What's the platform? What is it? It's almost like, it'd be like defending EA or Ubisoft. It's like, it's just a publisher at this point, is what it feels like to me.
That's why I said in the beginning, they don't know their identity. Xbox doesn't know their identity, and they're like in their awkward teenage years. They don't know who they are yet. You know what I mean?
Their voice is changing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a coming of age story for Microsoft and Xbox. Like, we don't know what the hell's happening. Maybe when they come through puberty, we'll see what happens.
Well, I think this was a good discussion, guys. We've been pulling your comments from chat. Feel free to weigh in one last time as we kind of round down here. And do me a favor, smash that like button. Let's get 300 likes on this video. We've had really crazy viewership today, and it really helps out when the likes are also looking nice. That helps more people find this video on YouTube. And we did hit the goal. You guys are going to get a bunch of fun stuff tonight with me and Madam, so don't miss that. There'll be all sorts of festivities. We will switch to VIP here in a moment. I'm actually going to have to use the VIP stream to prepare for Elden Ring. While I'm setting that up, Mike can tell you where to find him and what kind of content he's making. And again, make sure, smash the like button, click on his name in the description below, and give him a sub.
So on my channel, we cover news stories, but we cover them in a kind of different way, where Lono has a nice script for you. I read the stories on air for the first time and then give you my opinions based off the article itself, not from other YouTubers' comments, not from Twitter. It's literally read the article and give you my thoughts, and we have a conversation back and forth with chat, and then we do a couple stories. We do that Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning till noon Eastern. We do live shows, we do podcasts, we do gameplay, we do shorts, we do uploads. Lots of content over on 30NSG. So come on out.
Especially next week, guys. I won't be here, so, I'm taking a week off. If you're looking for somebody to hang out with in the mornings, if you're looking for that evening time slot as well, Generation X Gaming, like he said, it's good content. Be sure to check that out, and you guys can have a vacation home, right? Like, so while I'm gone,
like
you
the
guys,
Airbnb. I'm like the Airbnb.
Yeah, you can hang out with Mike, and then everything will resume with me on the 20th, just in time to. My plan is to sort of check out the Starfield update over the weekend when I get back, and then probably boot up that Monday and talk about what I think. I'm not sure what we have planned for Kirk on the 20th yet. He wants to do sort of like a spoiler-focused talk about Stellar Blade, like do like an actual full-on review. Challenge there is I don't know if I'm able to finish that before then. So that's the tentative plan right now for the return, and then obviously that 21st is going to be probably just a Hellblade day. It looks like they've released a video today, like 23 minutes, but I scrolled through and didn't see new gameplay. It's largely commentary from the devs. So let me set up redirect. If you guys got a gifted membership today, or you're a member, a long-standing member, don't forget tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, Friday Nights with Madam. It's going to be hilarious. We're going to do, there's like a dancing VR game. I have to fight Moog in Elden Ring. And then right now, you can upgrade to VIP and come with us for sort of an unfiltered conversation, sort of a look back on the week. And then again, I'm probably going to have to prepare for Elden Ring. So do me a favor, guys. Let's get 10 more likes, and then I'm going to spam a link in chat, and you can come with us.
I have a question for Dan in chat. He's saying, I need to have a set schedule. I have no idea what you're talking about. I am the most set scheduled person on YouTube history. I have a dedicated set schedule. I have no idea what you're asking.
Yeah, he has a set schedule. He does the same thing every day, and then he has the weekly podcast on Thursday nights. I don't understand.
Literally like 5 years.
Yeah. He's far more. I mean, I'm better now than I was, because that premiere hits every day at 9:30. But I'm the one that was like, yeah, 9:30, and then I'd show up like 9:45. I'm the one that struggled there. All right, I'm gonna start the VIP stream. Thanks so much for being a VIP. Some of you guys are still at VIP Plus. There's 9 of you. I need you to downgrade to standard VIP for me, please. I'm begging you. I don't want to kill the tier while you're still on it. We got rid of VIP Gold. It's gone. But we do need those 9 people on VIP Plus to downgrade. I am actually asking you to give me less money. So you can gift members, you can super chat, whatever, if you want to do that. I'm going to end the previous stream and redirect VIPs over. Smash like on the way out. It'll help that video. Appreciate you guys so much. And then I'll make sure to change that thumbnail. And then Creature will join us. And I'll get to